Good evening, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our reaction, discussion, review, wild speculation, meandering of this episode 3 of season 2 of Loki. This one is called 1893 because we went to the Chicago Fair, which we knew was coming.
Right.
From the trailers.
Yep.
And now we have officially seen everything that was in the trailers.
Yep.
Like we are caught up, and there's 3 episodes left. I had 4, and then I had 3.
2, sir.
5 is too many. A couple of things that we want to talk about before we really get into the episode. 1, pay your actors. You were at the table. It's dumb. Get it over with. I want the people who are working on these shows to have a chance to talk about the shows. And this is one of them because they're doing some heavy lifting for the MCU right now after some stumbles that they had with Secret Invasion. And some would say She-Hulk. We happen to like She-Hulk, but it was a very different show. And all that. So I really like to have people pumping this up and having fun with it and stuff like that. 2, we did actually see episode 2. However, we were not here. We were on vacay. We went to the land of the mouse and the land of many big boats, and just had a really good vacation for a week, even if injuries were involved. But we want to talk about that episode for like 2 seconds, just to kind of sets us up for this episode.
Yep.
That one, the couple of big things is they found Sylvie. And
working at a McDonald's.
Working at her McDonald's and loving her life in a branch timeline. And nobody was really messing with her. There's a really fun theory that the manager, the kid that she works for, is Mobius. I do that every time. And I love that theory. But they find her. Loki tries to say, hey, help us, kind of thing.
Yep.
And she comes back to the TVA to witness the mass pruning of all the timelines that the general was kind of talking about at the end of the first episode,
right,
and everything,
right.
And they all work together to stop it from being completely cataclysmic,
right? Because the loom was gonna blow.
The loom is gonna blow. We're still in the loom is going to blow.
Yep.
Thing, but her witnessing that. Reinforcing her thoughts about the TVA and how the TVA just killed billions of people. I think New Rockstars did the math, and it was like 19 billion people that they killed off or something like that. He was very general numbers kind of thing.
But, yeah.
And so yeah, it was one of those heavy on Sylvie. And the consequences of people trying to do their job with the TVA and stuff.
Well, yeah. The 2 sides of the TVA now. There's the people who are like, wait a minute, we can't prune every timeline because we're killing people. And then the people who are like, get them all.
Yeah. There's one timeline, and that's the only one that counts.
Right.
And so that kind of conversation is still going on because in this episode, at the start, it kind of is a continuation of episode 2, where Ouroboros, Obi, is in the control room for the loom, and the loom is overloading, and they need the aura of the person who created the loom to get into the system,
right?
So they can actually fix it,
right?
And that happens to be He Who Remains,
right?
Or
Miss Minutes.
And so they went looking for Miss Minutes. They found Ravonna.
Yep.
And in that they came across Victor Timely. Loki and Mobius are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to keep time kind of at least in control without killing off billions and billions of people.
Right.
Ravonna wants to turn everything back to the way it was.
Right.
And that's the continuation of the conversation we were having about episode 2.
And they're kind of, sort of, like throughout this episode, kind of, sorta on the same team.
Yeah.
They both want to get Victor back to the TVA.
Yeah.
Just with different outcomes.
Different purposes?
Different
I guess?
purposes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of. This episode was. I don't know that odd is the right word, but there was just so much. Like there was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on.
There was the whole like Butch Cassidy and Sundance, the Robert Redford and Paul Newman, Butch Cassidy on the double bike, and then Ghost Miss Minutes and her, like making these faces behind, like off to the side of Victor as him and Ravonna are talking, like to their faces. She's all like, "Yay!" and this is so cute, and then off up his shoulder, she's like,
There was a point. There was a reason why they were showing that, because she is jealous little bitch.
Yes, she is. Yep. And then like the Mobius mentions H.H. Holmes when they get to the World's Fair, and it's like, okay, weird thing. Like the very first, basically serial killer, H.H. Holmes, which he did. He took advantage of that World's Fair to bring people in and kill them, but just weird reference. Like that's what you bring up,
they kind of used Victor as that kind of H.H. Holmes kind of allegory, because he was swindling people out of money. He was taking advantage of the people at the fair by doing these prototypes that worked once on stage.
Yeah.
And kind of.
I think that's very much carnival.
It's fair. It's fair.
Kind of person, probably very popular. Or, I mean, at least stereotypically very popular at the time.
Yeah.
Because you could get away with it, right? You go to a city, you work your con for a while. There's no internet. There's no phones, right? So you can work your con and then move on to the next. The next thing, and then them just running like caramel. The
whole caramel corn conversation was just. And Loki saying it tastes like ash. It's like that. There was another word in that script right there. I know there was. and the Norse Norse god thing. I was like, oh, that doesn't look anything. Thor isn't even that tall.
Except it did look like Odin. And then there was no Loki. Like when you say Baldar, yeah. Like when you say Odin and Thor, the next thing I think of is Loki. But maybe that's just because we're so bathed in the Marvel, kind of thing. But like Odin even had the eye patch.
Yeah.
So
and the big bushy beard.
Yeah. So it's just weird.
It was weird. But I like that they showed. I love that they showed that Victor, because of Ravonna and Miss Minutes, gave him the book when he was a child.
Yeah.
That was kind of the second thing that happened in this episode. And then they move forward to time to get to the fair. He is very smart.
Right.
And he was able to take a lot of the stuff that was in the TVA book that they gave him to kind of work on his inventions. And he said that, like, multiple times he said in this episode, the technology doesn't exist for me to do what I want to do.
Yeah. He got there with what he had at that time. But just
and now he's going to the TVA.
Right. We'll see how that works out. But it was interesting. Like he stuttered and he was super awkward most of the time, and and he showed emotion, like before Sylvie came in and was essentially going to kill him. And and he's crying, and so it kind of shows you that they're not all gonna act like He Who Remains.
No, No. But we know from the other Kang variants that we have gotten that all Kangs have the same kind of lust for knowledge and power, and this one specifically, we've talked about this in the past with our reviews and stuff like that. That we don't know the comics super like in depth, so we're learning as we go along from other people talking about it and Marvelpedia, and try, going along with it. And Victor Timely is one of the ones that the Kane variants go. You go too far.
Yeah.
Like he's one of the scary ones who's
Right.
not afraid to get his hands dirty and be vicious and be nasty and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it's interesting that they decided to portray him kind of maybe potentially the opposite, or he's
they did
a
that
really
already
good actor.
They already did that with presenting a Kang variant as he remains in the comics. That's not how it happens, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think I think he's going to go to the TVA. He's going to find the ultimate power that's in there, and then he's going to start wrecking shop. Like he's going to
maybe. I feel like for him, it's not a thirst for power as much as a thirst for knowledge.
Fair.
Like what he really, really deep in his heart wants is to have all his inventions work the way he's envisioning that they should work in his head, and that the TVA handbook says that they will. I think he's gonna lose his mind when he meets Obi, because he was like, had the picture of him in the back of the TVA manual, and this guy's amazing. And
this guy, back to the previous episode where what's his name was asking for his autograph. Asking for Obi's autograph.
Oh yeah. What is his name?
I can't. Hector.
Harold.
Something like that. But I think
protector guy.
There's going to be a moment where there's going to be like a conflict. I think there's going to be ultimately conflict between the two of those. And what I really want to see is Kiyu Kwan and Jonathan Majors have a fight, like physical fight. Like I actually like for control of the soul of the TVA is what I really want. Is what I call them. It's been in the back of my head. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's something I think we need to talk about. Is the issues that have been brought to light with Jonathan Majors. He has been accused of some things. He has denied all of them. In fact, he was the one who made the phone call to the police, and there's a lot of weirdness going on with all of that. We in the past have always been wait until we get all the information before we jump to conclusions about what is actually going on. But I want to point out that a lot of that conversation has gone away, and that could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. That could be, or everybody's just pausing with this conversation, like what's going on. All of that being said, the dude's freaking amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking that while we were watching.
To do what he did with He Who Remains in that kind of unhinged version, and this version of the super awkward, stuttering. He had the same mannerisms of like every time he would say something, try to say it with confidence, he'd have to like grab his coat and do a thing, and he stuttered. He was crying when Sylvia was trying to kill him about him. I have my own heart. I'm going to make my own decisions, which is a lie. But I think Jonathan Majors is one of the better actors that we have going right now, and I'm not going to give an opinion on what those accusations are. I just hope that things can work out where he's still able to do things. Other people have been accused of a lot more and have come back and been very successful. And there's been people who've been accused of a lot less who we've never seen again.
Right.
So he's great.
And every situation's different. It's not like, I mean, we don't. The only people that really know what happened is him, and the woman in question.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Duke Lacrosse. So I just want to say that what they did with Victor in this episode, showing a different side of a Kang, was actually kind of cool to show this guy who is a grifter, who is super smart, but he is a grifter, and he's maybe confident in himself, but not as confident as he would like to be in himself. Because there's like multiple times where he pays off the gate guy to get on the Ferris wheel, or he gets on the boat with Ravonna, and he's like, "We'll need our regular accommodations." He's personable enough or liked enough where he can work the crowd and work these grifts,
yeah,
but also the street people, the everyday people who are working this fair, are in his confidence,
right.
like his gang. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is probably going way far down a rabbit hole, but again, that's kind of the life of a grifter.
Yeah,
You follow these carnies around, and the World's Fair in 1892, whatever it was, is just a giant carnival. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna bring in the carny circuit to run the rides and stuff. So he probably does know these people, and it seems like he lives here close by Wisconsin.
Because the taxes are better, and you kind of a quick little glance at the
Yeah.
the camera, like,
Okay.
okay.
Or there aren't any. I don't know. Is Wisconsin one of those states that doesn't have taxes? But he could be traveling in a smaller circle or whatever,
or known circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. Let's talk about the Ravonna and Sylvie dynamic. When Miss Minutes convinces Victor to get rid of Ravonna on the ship, and Miss Minutes protesting her love, and you should have made me a real body because I want to be a real boy and I want to make love to you. Creepy. Miss Minutes. Tara Strong has been amazing as Miss Minutes. Just everything that she's doing with that voice.
She puts her face goes on the mannequin.
And the giant ghost version. Miss Minutes has been on point. We haven't gotten the hello jump scare yet, but I think it's coming. But in the confrontation in his lab, Ravonna has essentially the prototype of the
pruning stick.
I wanted to call it the puke stick, and that's a different universe. But she says in that conversation, and Loki and Mobius are there, she says, "All I want is order." And there's a big flash of green magic, and Chaos of Sylvie shows up.
Right.
So we have one version who wants chaos, wants free will, wants everything to just go and stop messing with people's lives, and one who wants complete and utter control of everything. And I find that a very interesting conversation as we sit in our real world of, you have, I'm going to say it, you have one side who is mostly about free will and giving people the choice and do things, and you have the other side who want to have ultimate power over every decision that is going on. And it's kind of this really weird allegory that conversation's being had on screen with a black woman and a white woman.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And so it was like when she said, "All I want is control," or I want, wasn't control.
Order.
Yeah, that was.
She said order and chaos, and as soon as she said chaos, Sylvie showed up. So
the black woman depicted on screen wants ultimate control and order over everyone, and then the white woman, is showing up and doing chaos magic everywhere. It's just a very interesting dichotomy, because it's the same kind of conversation that we're having in about episode 2, and also what the the judges did in the first episode. You had the couple of judges were like, no, we want to keep the pruning kind of to a minimum as much as we can.
Yeah.
And the other one's like, no, we have to prune everything for
Yeah.
one sacred timeline.
Yeah.
So there's this conversation between order and chaos going on, or at least the main kind of thing going on in this season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think King is probably the ultimate chaos.
Yeah.
Or the Kings.
Or the Kings, yeah.
Variance is the ultimate chaos.
Is it King I? Is it
Kangas?
Is it like Jedi? It's plural.
King is plural.
King is plural and singular.
The Kang.
The Kang.
The Kang gang.
But I love I love the editing there where she says chaos, and chaos happens when Sylvie shows up. And Sylvie deciding not to kill Victor and letting Loki and Mobius take him back to the TVA, and then Ravonna, she holds her at machete point, hits her in the belly with the blunt of the sword, and Ravonna just kill me, just do it. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the BS.
Yeah,
I got this freaking ghost cock blocking me, and I'm tired. I'm just tired. I'm done. And Sylvie's like, I've killed you thousands of times in my head, in more and more gruesome ways each time. All you want is a seat at the end of time. I'm going to give it to you. And she hits the wrist thing, which they talked about at the end of the last episode. They show that Sylvie has He Who Remains wrist controller thing of everything.
Yep.
And she kicks it through a portal to the Fortress of Solitude that He Who Remains was at, and she calls up Miss Minutes, and Miss Minutes says, "I love you." Oh, damn it! And another point where we're both like, "She's just
creepy." Yeah.
But Miss Minutes and Ravonna have a conversation as the camera pans back. I want to talk about camera work in a second. The camera pans back as they're standing over the dead body of He Who Remains.
Right.
And Ravonna and Miss Minutes specifically says, I can tell you about who you really are, but you're not going to like it. And I instantly said that Miss Minutes is a variant of Ravonna. Or is Ravonna. Like that there's some direct connection between the two of them.
Yeah.
But they are the same person.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a variant of one or the other, but Miss Minutes is an AI. She talks about herself talks about being an AI. And then you gave me the opportunity to write my own code, which could mean that Ravonna died somewhere and they uploaded her consciousness into the AI programming that is Miss Minutes, and that gave her the free will to make her own decisions and do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that makes sense with what they were saying there. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but
all right. Wild speculation.
Wild speculation. I said at the beginning, we're going to do some wild speculation around here. I do want to talk about the camera work, because there was a couple of long takes at the beginning of this episode. One of them was in the control room for the loom. And they have two terminals in this kind of crescent-shaped room. And everybody was standing around one control point. What did I call it earlier? Monitor.
Terminal
monitor thing, whatever. OB goes over, they do an edit of him being at the other one. And then Hector and B-15 are at the one, and Loki and Mobius go over to the other one, and OB walks back, and they show the walk. Instead of doing the edit, they from a way panned back. So all five of them are in the shots. The two terminal points are in the shot. And they show OB doing exposition and doing the walk all the way around. And I thought that was a shot that we just don't normally see in the MCU, but it's totally something that would have happened in real life. Of course they would stop the conversation so he could go over to the other spot.
Right. Yeah. And it gives the room depth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you understand kind of how big it is and, what's fully going on in the shot.
And some people complain that they know when the volume is being used and when they don't, when it's not being used. My brain knows when they're using the volume. I could tell you, I could point out the scenes where I know that they use the volume, but for this episode, it was really well hidden that they use the volume. And because they had this establishing shot in the control room, your brain automatically goes, oh, that's all practical. It's a real thing, whatever. And then they're running through the alleys of all the different shanty towns that were set up around the fair. They had this long chase between all the alleys. And so that gives you, it grounds everything a lot easier. So when they do the big panning shots of the Ferris wheel, or they're on the boat, or whatever, there's your brain's like, oh, it's all real because I've seen it already. It's already established in my brain to be real.
Yep.
There's also a oneer where they go from 1863 to 1869, I think is what it was, to 1893. So when Victor gets the book to the World's Fair.
Yep.
And they do this oneer where they follow Mobius and Loki through some of the streets. They open a gate. The camera goes through the gate, and then all of a sudden we're in the World's Fair.
Right.
And that was a great shot again too.
Yep.
And then the closing of the window for the edit of the time.
Yeah, making it feel old timey
and stuff. So yeah, it's just, they've done a really, really cool job of doing some in camera visual effects to make our brain not see the visual effects. And just some cool exposition storytelling and stuff like that in camera.
And speaking of old timey, they opened with an old timey ragtime Marvel theme instead of the normal one.
The normal fanfare from Giacchino. Yeah, it's definitely. I want to know who they got to play on the Old West piano. You know that tingy kind of
ragtime piano.
Yeah. It was definitely it started, and we're both like.
I was waiting for I'm like, where are we going? Oh, okay, it's the opening intro. It's just.
And I think they used a different version of Loki's theme in this episode too. There was notes in there that I recognize of Loki's theme, but it sounded different. I can't remember if it was the harpsichord chord, the old timey piano. You just said the name, and my brain went harpsichord.
The ragtime
piano. But I just 2 really good episodes in a row, 3 really good episodes in a row. There's only 3 left. I'm interested where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and who could possibly show up, because now we're back in the TVA, and if the TVA is actually going to start pruning timelines, because Victor's there and they need to fix the timeline, all this stuff, what variants are going to show up?
Yeah.
Because they made a point of talking about the different variants of Kang.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope. I think that's it.
So let us know what you thought of this episode and our discussion about it in the comments down below. Please be nice. It's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. I haven't done this in a few weeks. Hit the bell for notifications. Follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.